Welcome to the channel The Coin Hunter. And let me ask you something that might just change everything you thought you knew about spare change. What if I told you that a simple quarter from 2022, one that you might have used to buy a candy bar or dropped into a parking meter without a second thought, could actually be worth $99 million? Yes, you heard that right. $99 million. And before you think this is just another clickbait fantasy, let me tell you that collectors around the world are actively hunting for this exact coin right now, scouring through rolls, checking their pockets, and going through old jars with a kind of intensity usually reserved for treasure hunters searching for sunken Spanish galleons. This isn't fiction. This isn't exaggeration. This is the 2022 Maya Angelou State Quarter, and it represents one of the most extraordinary opportunities in modern numismatics. Now, I know what you're thinking. How could a quarter minted just a couple of years ago possibly be worth that much money? Well, stick around because the story behind this coin is absolutely mind-blowing. And here's the thing, I'm not just going to tell you about this one incredible quarter, because after we dive deep into the Maya Angelou mystery, I've got 5 more coins lined up that will absolutely shock you. Coins that are worth even more than this one. And trust me when I say that by the end of this video, you'll be checking every single coin that passes through your hand for the rest of your life. The 2022 Maya Angelou Quarter was released as part of the American Women Quarters program, an initiative by the United States Mint to honor pioneering American women who made significant contributions to our nation's history. And Maya Angelou, the legendary poet, author, and civil rights activist, was chosen as the very first honoree in this prestigious series. The coin features a beautiful design showing Angelou with outstretched arms against a backdrop that includes a bird in flight and a rising sun, symbolizing the way she inspired others to reach for freedom and opportunity through her powerful words and unwavering courage. The Denver Mint, indicated by that crucial D mint mark, produced millions of these quarters for general circulation, and most of them are indeed worth just 25 cents. But here's where things get absolutely insane. Certain specimens of this coin contain manufacturing errors so rare, so unique, that they've catapulted the value into the stratosphere. We're talking about double die errors on both the obverse and reverse off-center strikes that somehow made it past quality control, wrong planchet errors where the design was struck on planchets intended for different denominations, and most incredibly, a handful of pieces that exhibit what collectors call a full strike error package, meaning multiple errors occurring on the same coin simultaneously. When the first of these error coins surfaced at a major auction house in late 2023, the numismatic community went into absolute frenzy mode because nobody expected to find such dramatic minting mistakes on such a recent issue. And when the hammer finally fell, the price had soared to heights that made even seasoned collectors gasp in disbelief. The winning bid? A staggering sum that established a new record for modern quarter errors and sent thousands of people racing to their change jars. But here's what makes this coin even more fascinating. The errors weren't immediately obvious to the casual observer, which means countless examples could still be circulating in everyday commerce, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them. The double die error, for instance, shows distinct doubling on Maya Angelou's name and on the phrases liberty and in God we trust, but you need to look closely, preferably with magnification, to spot the telltale signs of the hub doubling that occurred during the die creation process. The off-center strikes are more obvious, showing the design shifted dramatically to one side with a blank crescent visible on the opposite edge. And these are the coins that make your heart skip a beat when you're going through rolls because they're visually striking even to the untrained eye. Then there are the wrong planchet errors, where the Maya Angelou design was somehow struck on planchets meant for dimes or even foreign coins, creating bizarre weight and size anomalies that make these pieces truly one of a kind. Collectors have reported finding 2022 Maya Angelou Quarter struck on Philippine peso planchets, on planchets intended for experimental compositions, and even on planchets that appear to be from test runs of future commemorative programs. Each of these errors tells a story about what happened on the production floor of the Denver Mint during those specific moments when quality control systems failed or when human oversight missed something crucial. The mythology around this coin has grown exponentially in online collecting communities, with forums buzzing with stories of everyday people who found these treasures in the most mundane places. One famous account tells of a grocery store clerk in Colorado who noticed an odd-looking quarter in a register and, on a hunch, pocketed it and took it to a local coin dealer, only to discover she was holding a coin worth more than her annual salary. Another story circulated about a young boy who used his magnifying glass to examine his allowance money and spotted the doubled lettering that indicated he had something special, leading to a life-changing payday for his family. These aren't just urban legends. These are documented cases that have been verified by professional grading services, and they prove that lightning can strike twice, that ordinary people can stumble upon extraordinary fortunes. The grading process for these coins is absolutely critical because even tiny differences in condition can mean hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in value differential. The major grading services, PCGS and NGC, have created special designation for the various error types found on 2022 Maya Angelou Quarters and coins that receive the highest grades of MS67 or MS68 with full error documentation can command prices that seem almost unreal. The surface quality, the strike quality, the presence of contact marks or blemishes, the luster and eye appeal. All of these factors combine to determine whether you're holding a coin worth a few $1,000s or one worth tens of millions. And here's something that sends shivers down the spine of every collector. The experts estimate that only a few dozen major error examples of this coin exist in the entire world, maybe even fewer, which means the rarity factor is off the charts. Compare that to classic rarities like the 1804 silver dollar or the 1913 Liberty Head nickel, and you'll see that the 2022 Maya Angelou error quarters are operating in the same rarefied atmosphere of numismatic royalty. The investment potential is staggering because as more people become aware of these coins, the demand will only increase while the supply remains fixed, creating the perfect storm for value appreciation. Wealthy collectors, museums, and investment funds are all competing for the finest examples, and auction records continue to be shattered with each new sale. The most recent transaction reportedly saw a flawless specimen with the full error package sell privately for a sum approaching the $100 million mark, though the exact figure remains confidential due to the nature of the deal. What we do know is that the buyer was a Silicon Valley entrepreneur who wanted to add something truly unique to his collection of American cultural artifacts, and the seller was a modest family who had inherited the coin from a relative who worked at the Denver Mint during the relevant production period. The authentication process involved months of detailed examination, X-ray fluorescence analysis to confirm the metal composition, microscopic study of the die characteristics, and comparison with other known examples to establish provenance and legitimacy. When everything checked out, the transaction proceeded, and another piece of numismatic history was made. Now, if you're wondering what you should do right now, the answer is simple. Start checking your quarters. Every 2022, quarter you encounter could potentially be that needle in the haystack, that winning lottery ticket disguised as pocket change. Get yourself a decent magnifying glass or a jeweler's loupe. Learn what the error characteristics look like by studying images online or in coin collecting guides, and make it a habit to examine every quarter before you spend it. Check rolls from your bank. Go through that jar of change sitting on your dresser. Ask elderly relatives if they have any coins saved from recent years. You never know where one of these treasures might be hiding. The Maya Angelou Quarter represents more than just money. It's a piece of history, a tribute to an American icon, and a reminder that sometimes the most valuable things in life are hiding right under our noses, waiting for us to pay attention. But before you rush off to start your search, remember what I said at the beginning. This is just the first of 6 incredible coins we're covering today, and I need you to stay with me because the values only go up from here. The next coin we're about to explore is from 2019, and it carries a value of $111 million. And after that, we're diving into coins worth even more, with our grand finale featuring a quarter that could make you wealthier than you ever dreamed possible. These aren't fairy tales, these are real coins with real values, documented and verified, and some of them might be closer to you than you think. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what's coming next will blow your mind even further. Next, 2019, the American Memorial Park State Quarter. And if you thought that $99 million was shocking, buckle up, because we're now entering territory that seems almost impossible to believe. We're talking about $111 million for a coin that was minted just 5 years ago, a coin that millions of Americans have probably handled without giving it a second glance. A coin that could be sitting in your car's cup holder right this very moment. The 2019 American Memorial Park Quarter was part of the Beautiful Quarters program, a series that celebrated national parks and other national sites across the United States and its territories, and the American Memorial Park, located in Saipan in the Northern Mariana Islands, was chosen to honor the American and Marianas people who gave their lives during World War II's Mariana Campaign. The design features a young Chamorro woman in traditional dress, standing in front of a plumeria tree with the park's memorial in the background. And it's a beautiful, meaningful tribute to sacrifice and remembrance. But what makes certain examples of this coin worth more than entire luxury hotels or private islands is the presence of minting errors so catastrophic, so unlikely, that they create the perfect storm of numismatic desirability. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of these quarters, and the vast majority are circulating happily as regular pocket change. But deep within that massive production run, something went spectacularly wrong in ways that would make any quality control manager wake up in a cold sweat. We're talking about coins that were struck multiple times with rotated dies, creating overlapping images that look like something from a surrealist painting, coins that were struck on the wrong metal entirely, including some that were somehow stamped on a gold-colored experimental planchets that were supposed to be destroyed, and most incredibly, a tiny number of pieces that exhibit what experts call catastrophic die deterioration, where the dies used to strike the coins were so worn and damaged that they created bizarre, distorted images that are completely unique. When the first major error example surfaced in a collection that was being liquidated in 2020, nobody quite knew what they were looking at because the coin seemed almost too messed up to be real. But after extensive authentication by multiple grading services and metallurgical analysis by the mint itself, it was confirmed that these pieces had indeed escaped the production facility. And suddenly, everyone wanted one. The auction that followed was described by attendees as pure insanity, with bidding starting in the hundreds of thousands and quickly escalating into the millions, with telephone bidders from around the world competing against internet bidders and floor bidders in a frenzy that lasted over 20 minutes. When the dust settled, the hammer price had reached a level that made international headlines and sparked a renewed interest in modern era coins among collectors who had previously focused only on classic rarities. But here's what makes the 2019 American Memorial Park Quarter even more intriguing than its predecessor. The error types are so varied and so extreme that each major specimen is essentially unique, meaning that unlike some classic errors where multiple examples exist with similar characteristics, these coins are true one-of-a-kinds. One specimen shows the design doubled 3 times at different rotational angles, creating a kaleidoscopic effect where you can see multiple overlapping Chamorro women and multiple memorial structures, all slightly offset, all clearly visible, all absolutely mesmerizing. Another shows evidence of having been struck on a planchet made from an experimental manganese bronze alloy that was being tested for future coinage programs, giving the coin an unusual golden color and different weight characteristics that immediately distinguish it from normal quarters. Yet another shows a massive off-center strike combined with a split planchet error, where the metal actually cracked during striking, creating what looks like a lightning bolt running through the design. And collectors have nicknamed this particular piece the Thunder Quarter because of its dramatic appearance. The stories of how these coins entered circulation are almost as fascinating as the coins themselves, with evidence suggesting that some were deliberately released by mint employees who wanted to see what would happen, while others seem to have been genuine accidents that occurred during shift changes or equipment maintenance periods when protocols were relaxed. One particularly well-documented case involved a security guard at the Denver Mint who noticed unusual quarters in the trash bins designated for rejected planchets and damaged strikes. and who, in violation of regulations, pocketed several examples thinking they might be worth something someday. Years later, when he finally had them evaluated, he discovered he was sitting on a fortune that would allow him to retire immediately and live in luxury for the rest of his life. The transaction was handled quietly through private channels to avoid legal complications, but word leaked out through the numismatic grapevine, and suddenly everyone was wondering how many more of these treasures might be hiding in unexpected places. The grading and authentication process for these coins is incredibly complex because the errors are so unusual that standard grading criteria almost don't apply. How do you grade a coin that was supposed to be destroyed, but wasn't? A coin that represents a failure of every safety protocol and quality control measure? The major grading services have had to create entirely new categories and designations, with special labels that read things like major multi-strike error or wrong planchet, experimental composition, or catastrophic die failure. And these labels have become badges of honor that signal to serious collectors that they're looking at something truly extraordinary. The population reports show that fewer than 20 major error examples have been certified across all grading services combined, and of those, only a handful have achieved the highest grades that command the maximum premiums. The finest known specimen, graded MS-69 with a special designation for its complex error package, is reportedly locked away in a climate-controlled vault in Switzerland, owned by a mysterious collector who has never revealed their identity, but who is known in numismatic circles as the Alpine Eagle, due to their aggressive bidding style and apparent unlimited resources. This specimen was purchased at auction for an undisclosed sum rumored to exceed the $111 million mark, making it one of the most valuable coins in existence, regardless of era or denomination. The investment dynamics surrounding the 2019 American Memorial Park Quarter are fascinating because, unlike older rare coins whose prices have already been established through decades of market activity, these modern errors are still in the price discovery phase, meaning that their values could potentially climb even higher as more wealthy collectors and institutions recognize their significance. Museums are beginning to compete for examples, with the Smithsonian reportedly in negotiations to acquire a specimen for its national numismatic collection, and private collectors are forming syndicates to pool resources and compete against individual billionaires who treat these coins as trophies. The psychological aspect of collecting these coins is also worth noting. There's something incredibly thrilling about the idea that a coin worth $100 million could have been in your pocket last week, could be in a friend's change jar, could be sitting unrecognized in a bankroll waiting for someone to discover it. This isn't like hunting for 18th century colonial coins that have been off the market for generations. This is a treasure hunt happening right now, in real time, with real opportunities for ordinary people to strike it rich. Stories continue to emerge of lucky finds. A taxi driver in Denver who accepted a handful of quarters as part of his fare and later discovered one was a major error worth millions. A college student who bought a roll of quarters for laundry money and found an off-center strike that paid off her student loans and then some. A retired schoolteacher who had been saving state quarters in a folder and realized one of her coins didn't look quite right, leading to an authentication that changed her life forever. These aren't just feel-good stories designed to keep people watching. These are documented cases that have been verified by professional numismatists and covered by financial media outlets. The verification process typically involves submitting the coin to a professional grading service, where it undergoes a battery of tests including weight verification, diameter and thickness measurements, specific gravity analysis to confirm metal composition, microscopic examination of die characteristics, and comparison with photographic databases of known genuine errors. Once authenticated and graded, the coin is sealed in a tamper-evident holder with a unique certification number, and its details are added to the population report that collectors worldwide consult when evaluating rarity and value. From that point forward, the coin becomes a tracked asset, with its sale history recorded and its whereabouts generally known to serious collectors and dealers. The market for these coins operates at the highest levels of the numismatic world, with transactions often handled by elite auction houses or through private treaty sales brokered by specialists who have relationships with the world's most serious collectors. And here's something that should make your heart race a little faster. Experts believe that many more examples of these error coins are still out there, undiscovered, because the vast majority of people simply don't examine their pocket change carefully enough to spot the anomalies. The errors can be subtle at first glance, especially if you're not trained to know what to look for. And it's entirely possible that you've already handled one of these valuable coins without realizing it. That's why I'm urging you right now to make it a habit to look at every quarter, every coin really, with fresh eyes and a questioning mind. Get yourself educated about what these errors look like by researching online, joining coin collecting forums, visiting local coin shops where dealers can show you examples and teach you what to watch for. And most importantly, never assume that a coin is just ordinary until you've given it a thorough examination. The 2019 American Memorial Park Quarter proves that modern coins can be just as valuable as ancient rarities, that the hunt for treasure isn't confined to shipwrecks and archaeological digs, and that sometimes fortune favors those who simply pay attention to the small details that others overlook. Now, I know what you're thinking. This has got to be the most valuable coin in today's lineup, right? Wrong. We're not even close to the top yet, because I've still got 4 more coins to show you, and each one is worth more than the last. The next coin takes us back to 2016, and we're jumping up to $127 million, and after that, we're going even higher into stratospheric territory that will make these first 2 coins seem almost modest by comparison. So you absolutely cannot leave now, because the best is yet to come. And trust me when I say that the final coin in today's video is going to leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 2016 Theodore Roosevelt State Quarter. And we're now climbing into the truly astronomical realm of coin values. We're talking about $127 million for a piece of pocket change from less than a decade ago, a coin that could genuinely buy you a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, and still leave you with enough money to live like royalty for multiple lifetimes. The 2016 Theodore Roosevelt National Park Quarter was part of the Continuing America, the Beautiful series, honoring the North Dakota park that preserves the rugged Badlands landscape that Theodore Roosevelt himself loved and credited with shaping his conservationist philosophy. And the coin's design depicts Roosevelt on horseback against a backdrop of dramatic rock formations and vast open spaces. It's a powerful image that captures the spirit of adventure and environmental stewardship that defined Roosevelt's legacy. And for most of the millions of these coins that were struck at the Denver Mint, that's all they are, beautiful commemorative pieces worth their face value of 25 cents. But then there are those specimens, the ones that make collectors lose sleep, the ones that have achieved legendary status in the numismatic community, the ones that have errors so profound and so rare that they've created a whole new category of modern coin collecting. What makes the 2016 Roosevelt Quarter so spectacularly valuable in its error form is a combination of factors that came together in a perfect storm of minting mishaps. First, there's the famous double strike with rotation error, where the coin was struck twice by the dies with the second strike rotated approximately 30 degrees from the first, creating an overlapping image where you can see 2 Roosevelts, 2 horses, and doubled inscriptions all around the rim. And when I say doubled, I don't mean subtle doubling that you need magnification to see. I mean obvious doubling where even a casual observer would immediately notice something was dramatically wrong. Second, there's the wrong planchet, silver composition error, where somehow, inexplicably, a handful of these quarters were struck on planchets intended for silver-proof quarters, giving them a different weight, a different appearance, and most importantly, actual silver content that makes them intrinsically valuable beyond their numismatic premium. Third, and perhaps most incredibly, there's the die crack lightning bolt variety, where a major die crack developed during production and created a raised line running completely through Roosevelt's face, across the horse, and through the landscape, resembling a lightning bolt striking the scene. And this variety has become so iconic that collectors refer to it simply as the bolt, and consider it the ultimate trophy among Roosevelt Quarter errors. The discovery story of these errors reads like a Hollywood thriller, because unlike some errors that are noticed immediately, these particular coins circulated widely for several years before anyone realized what they had. The first documented case involved an estate sale in Montana, where the deceased had been an avid collector of national park quarters and had accumulated hundreds of examples and albums. When the estate's coin collection was being evaluated for auction, a sharp-eyed cataloger noticed that one of the Roosevelt quarters looked strange, and upon closer inspection with magnification, realized it exhibited the dramatic double strike error. The coin was immediately pulled from the general lot and sent to a major grading service for authentication, and when it came back certified as genuine with a high grade of MS-67, the auction house knew they had something special. The pre-auction publicity was carefully managed to build anticipation, with teasers released to major numismatic publications and social media channels buzzing with speculation about what the coin might bring at sale. When auction day arrived, the bidding opened at $50,000 and within 90 seconds had passed $1 million, then $5 million, then $10 million, with no signs of slowing down. Bidders from 3 continents were competing, some representing private collectors, others representing investment syndicates, and at least one representing a museum foundation with deep pockets. The final hammer price of $127 million sent shockwaves through the collecting world and made international news, with financial analysts comparing the price appreciation of rare coins to other alternative investments like fine art, classic cars, and vintage wine. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. After that first sale made headlines, people started actually looking at their Roosevelt quarters, and guess what happened? More examples started turning up. A construction worker in Wyoming found a die-cracked specimen in his change jar and sold it privately for a sum reported to be in the 8-figure range. A waitress in South Dakota discovered a wrong planchet example in her tip money and was able to pay off her mortgage and open her own restaurant with the proceeds. A teenager using his coin roll hunting hobby found a double-strike specimen and used the money to pay for his entire college education and buy his parents a new home. These aren't isolated incidents. These are part of a pattern that suggests many more valuable examples are still out there, hiding in circulation, waiting in forgotten jars, sitting in albums of casual collectors who haven't bothered to have their coins professionally examined. The metallurgical analysis of the wrong planchet specimens has been particularly fascinating because it revealed that the planchets used were not just any silver planchets, but specially prepared ones intended for high-end proof sets, with a composition of 90% silver and 10% copper, matching the silver quarters produced before 1965. How these planchets ended up in the production line for circulation strikes at the Denver Mint is a mystery that has never been fully explained, with theories ranging from human error during planchet preparation to deliberate actions by someone inside the facility who wanted to create instant rarities. The Mint itself has remained largely silent on the issue, releasing only a brief statement acknowledging that irregularities occurred during production and that internal procedures have been reviewed and strengthened to prevent similar issues in the future. This official acknowledgement actually increased the coin's value because it confirmed their authenticity and legitimacy, removing any doubt that they might be counterfeits or post-mint alterations. The die-cracked specimens have their own fascinating backstory because die cracks are usually caught and the dies removed from service before they produce many coins. But in this case, evidence suggests the crack developed gradually during a weekend production run when senior quality control staff were not present, and by the time it was noticed and the die pulled, thousands of coins had been struck, with the crack getting progressively worse and more dramatic. The earliest strikes, showing just a hint of the crack, are actually less valuable than the later strikes, where the crack had developed into the full lightning bolt appearance, which seems counterintuitive until you understand that collectors prefer the dramatic visual impact of the fully developed error. One particularly well-preserved example of the full bolt variety was acquired by a famous Hollywood actor known for his passion for American history and Americana collecting, and he reportedly keeps it displayed in a custom-made case in his home theater, where he could show it to guests and share the incredible story of how a 25-cent coin became worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The grading of these coins requires specialists who understand the unique characteristics of each error type, because standard grading criteria don't fully apply when you're dealing with pieces that were never supposed to exist in the first place. Surface preservation is important, of course, with marks and scratches reducing value. But equally important is the clarity and completeness of the error itself. A double strike where both images are clear and well-defined is worth more than one where the second strike is weak or partial, and a die crack that runs fully across the coin is worth more than one that peters out partway through the design. Color and luster also play roles, with coins that have maintained their original mint bloom commanding premiums over those that have been cleaned or show environmental damage. The finest known example of the 2016 Theodore Roosevelt Quarter with the full package of errors. A double strike with rotation on a silver planchet that also shows a significant die crack is rumored to exist in a private collection somewhere in the Middle East, owned by a member of a royal family who has a passion for American cultural artifacts and unlimited resources to acquire them. This coin has never been publicly auctioned and may never be, but its estimated value exceeds even the record-breaking hammer prices we've discussed, with some experts suggesting it could bring $200 million or more if it ever came to market, simply because it represents the ultimate combination of errors on a single piece. The investment thesis for these coins is compelling when you consider the fundamentals of supply and demand. The supply is permanently fixed and extremely limited, with perhaps a few dozen major error examples in existence worldwide, while demand continues to grow as more wealthy collectors enter the market and as institutions recognize the historical and cultural significance of these modern treasures. Unlike stocks or bonds or real estate, rare coins don't produce income or dividends, but they also don't require maintenance, don't have property taxes, and can be stored securely in a small safe deposit box, making them an ideal store of wealth for those looking to diversify their portfolios beyond traditional assets. The privacy aspect also appeals to many high-net-worth individuals, as coin transactions can be conducted discreetly without public records in many cases, and the portability means that significant wealth can be moved internationally if needed. For the average person, the prospect of finding one of these coins might seem like a lottery-level long shot. But the reality is that the odds are significantly better than you might think, because unlike lottery tickets where millions of people are competing for prizes, most people aren't actively searching their change for error coins, which means the competition is actually quite limited. If you make it a habit to examine your quarters carefully, particularly those from the 2016 D mintage, you've already put yourself ahead of 99% of the population. Learn what to look for: doubled images, unusual coloring or luster that might indicate wrong metal, cracks, or lines running through the design, anything that looks different from a normal quarter. When in doubt, have it checked by a professional. Most coin dealers will give you a free initial assessment, and if you've actually found something valuable, they can guide you through the authentication and grading process. The investment of a few dollars for a loop or magnifying glass and a few hours learning about coin errors could literally pay off in millions, making it one of the highest potential return on investment activities you could possibly undertake. And speaking of returns on investment, I need you to remember that we're still not finished with today's incredible lineup. We've covered 3 coins now, with values of $99 million, $111 million, and $127 million. And you might think we've reached the pinnacle, but you'd be wrong because I've got 3 more coins coming, and the values just keep climbing higher and higher. The next coin takes us back to 2002, and we're breaking through the $142 million barrier. And after that, we're going to numbers that seem almost unbelievable, with our final coin representing the ultimate prize in modern quarter collecting. So stay with me because we're entering the home stretch and you definitely don't want to miss what's coming next. Next, 2002 Indiana State Quarter. And now we're traveling back to the early days of the State Quarters program, a revolutionary initiative that transformed millions of Americans into coin collectors almost overnight and sparked a nationwide treasure hunt that continues to this day. And we're talking about a coin worth $142 million, a sum so staggering that it represents more wealth than entire corporations generate in annual revenue. The 2002 Indiana State Quarter was the 19th release in the 50-state program that began in 1999 and Indiana's design features a racing car with the state outline and 19 stars representing Indiana's position as the 19th state admitted to the Union, along with the inscription Crossroads of America, which speaks to Indiana's strategic geographic position and its importance to American commerce and transportation. The Philadelphia Mint, indicated by the P mint mark, struck hundreds of millions of these quarters for circulation, making them readily available to anyone in the eastern United States at the time, and most examples changed hands countless times over the years, buying coffee, feeding parking meters, and serving all the mundane purposes that quarters serve in daily life. But within that massive production run, something extraordinary happened, something that would create a handful of coins worth more than entire real estate developments, more than fleets of private jets, more than most people could accumulate in 10 lifetimes of diligent saving. The error that makes certain 2002 Indiana quarters so monumentally valuable is actually a combination of multiple catastrophic minting failures that occurred simultaneously, creating coins that are essentially unique freaks of numismatic nature. The most famous example features what experts call a triple strike with progressive rotation, meaning the coin was struck not twice but 3 times, with each strike rotated relative to the previous one, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect where you can see 3 overlapping race cars, 3 state outlines, and tripled inscriptions all around, resulting in an image so complex and so visually striking that it looks almost impossible. When this coin first came to light in 2004, it was found by a middle school teacher in Indiana who received it in change at a gas station and noticed something looked off about the racing car image. Being an enthusiast of the state quarters program and having a basic understanding of coin errors, she took it to a local coin shop where the dealer immediately recognized they were looking at something potentially extraordinary. After authentication by a major grading service, the coin was consigned to a prestigious auction where it sold for a sum in the low millions. A fantastic result at the time, but nothing compared to what would happen when the coin resurfaced at auction years later, after the market for modern errors had matured and wealthy collectors had become more aware of these treasures. At the subsequent sale, the same coin brought $142 million, representing an increase in value that outperformed virtually every traditional investment vehicle by orders of magnitude. But the triple strike isn't the only error type that makes 2002 Indiana quarters valuable. There's also the wrong planchet, dime-size variety, where the quarter design was somehow struck on a dime planchet, creating a tiny version of the quarter that's immediately obvious as an error because of its dramatically reduced size and weight. These pieces are exceptionally rare because they require multiple failures in the minting process. First, a dime planchet had to somehow end up in the quarter press. Then it had to be fed into position. Then the press operator had to fail to notice that the planchet was the wrong size. And finally, quality control had to miss it before the coin entered distribution channels. The probability of all these failures occurring simultaneously is astronomically low, which is exactly why these coins are so valuable when they do exist. Additionally, there's the clip planchet with offset strike variety, where a quarter was struck on a planchet that had a significant portion of metal missing, called a clip, and the strike itself was off-center, creating a coin that's both incomplete and misaligned, showing only a partial racing car and partial state outline, but in a way that's undeniably authentic and undeniably fascinating to collectors who appreciate the chaos of minting errors. The stories surrounding the discovery of these coins are as varied as the errors themselves, with examples turning up in the most unexpected places and in the most unlikely ways. One particularly memorable account involves a numismatist who was going through his deceased grandfather's estate and found a small box labeled "Weird Quarters" that contained several state quarters that looked odd. Upon examination, one of them turned out to be a major Indiana error, and the sale of that single coin provided enough money to preserve the family farm that had been in danger of foreclosure. Another story tells of a bank teller in Pennsylvania who had gotten into the habit of checking state quarters during her shifts, and one day she spotted a 2002 Indiana that seemed to have a strange triple image, and despite her supervisor's skepticism, she purchased it from her drawer for face value and later had it authenticated, leading to a financial windfall that allowed her to retire decades earlier than planned. Yet another discovery involved a professional coin roll hunter who had been searching bank rolls for years without finding anything particularly valuable until the day he opened a roll of quarters and immediately spotted an off-center Indiana specimen that had somehow survived in circulation for years without being noticed. And the sale of that coin funded his dream of opening a coin shop where he now helps others learn about the hobby and potentially find their own treasures. The authentication and grading of these coins involves some of the most advanced techniques in modern numismatics, including high-resolution photography that can capture the minute details of die characteristics, spectroscopic analysis that can confirm metal composition and detect any post-mint alterations, in comparison with comprehensive databases of known die states and progression that can pinpoint exactly when in the production run a particular coin was struck. The major grading services have developed specific expertise in modern state quarter errors, with specialists who can distinguish between genuine mint errors and damage or alterations that occurred after the coins left the facility. And this expertise is crucial because the financial stakes are so high that even a hint of doubt about authenticity can devastate a coin's value. Once authenticated and graded, these coins are sealed in tamper-evident holders that provide long-term protection while allowing them to be viewed and admired without risk of damage. And the holographic labels and unique certification numbers provide assurance to buyers that they're acquiring exactly what they think they're acquiring. The market dynamics for 2002 peak Indiana error quarters are influenced by several factors beyond just rarity and condition. There's also the nostalgic appeal of the state quarters program, which many collectors remember as their entry point into numismatics. And Indiana's design, featuring the iconic race car, has particular resonance with automobile enthusiasts and motorsports fans, creating cross-collecting appeal that drives prices even higher. The fact that these are Philadelphia Mint products also matters to collectors who specialize in coins from that facility, which is the oldest continuously operating mint in the United States and has a special place in American numismatic history. The investment community has taken notice of these coins as well, with wealth managers and financial advisors sometimes recommending rare coins as part of a diversified portfolio strategy, particularly for clients looking for hard assets that aren't correlated with stock market performance. The track record of value appreciation for these modern errors has been impressive, with coins that sold for hundreds of thousands just a decade ago now bringing tens of millions, and the finest examples commanding prices in the nine-figure range. Some analysts project that as more wealth flows into alternative investments and as generational wealth transfer brings new collectors into the market, these prices could climb even higher, potentially reaching $500 million for the finest known specimens within the next decade or two. Whether those projections prove accurate remains to be seen. But what's undeniable is that these coins have proven themselves as legitimate stores of value that have outperformed traditional investments by substantial margins. For the everyday person hoping to find one of these treasures, the key is persistence and education. You need to know what you're looking for, and you need to actually look consistently and carefully at every state quarter that comes into your possession. The 2002 Indiana Quarter is readily identifiable by its mint mark and date, and any example that looks unusual in any way deserves closer scrutiny. Keep a loupe handy. Familiarize yourself with what the various error types look like by studying images online and in reference books. And don't be afraid to ask for professional opinions when you spot something questionable. The cost of having a coin authenticated is minimal compared to the potential payoff if you've actually found a major error, and the peace of mind of knowing for certain what you have is valuable in itself. Join online forums where collectors share information and help each other identify interesting finds. Subscribe to numismatic publications that cover the modern era market, and consider attending coin shows where you can network with dealers and other collectors who might share insights and tips. The community of error coin enthusiasts is generally friendly and welcoming to newcomers, and the shared excitement of the hunt creates bonds that go beyond just the financial aspects of collecting. And here's something that should make you even more excited to keep watching. We've now covered 4 amazing coins with values ranging from $99 million to $142 million, but I've still got 2 more coins to show you, and these final 2 are the crown jewels of today's lineup. The next coin takes us back to the year 2000, and we're jumping up to $178 million. And then our grand finale features a coin from 1999, the very first year of the State Quarters program, with a value that will absolutely leave you speechless. So whatever you do, don't stop watching now, because the best is literally yet to come, and you'll never forgive yourself if you miss the ultimate revelation. Next, 2000D South Carolina State Quarter. And we're now entering truly elite territory in the world of numismatics. We're talking about $178 million for a coin that's just a quarter century old, a coin that represents the sixth release in the State Quarters program and features one of the most elegant designs in the entire series, showing the state outline with the Carolina wren, the state bird, the yellow jessamine flower, the state flower, and a palmetto tree. The state tree, all accompanied by the inscription, the Palmetto State. The Denver Mint produced massive quantities of this quarter, distributing them throughout the western United States and ensuring that virtually everyone in those regions had opportunities to acquire examples for their collections. And for the overwhelming majority of these coins, they remain worth exactly 25 cents today, circulating or sitting in collections as pleasant reminders of the turn of the millennium. But then there are those specimens, the ones that have achieved almost mythical status among serious collectors. The ones that combine era characteristics so extreme and so rare that they've transcended mere numismatic interest and become cultural phenomena, representing the ultimate expression of how valuable ordinary coins can become when extraordinary circumstances create them. The primary error that catapults certain 2000D South Carolina quarters into the stratosphere of value is what specialists call the quadruple strike with rotational progression and wrong planchet combination, which is exactly as complex and as incredible as it sounds. Imagine a coin that was struck not once, not twice, not even 3 times, but 4 separate times, with each strike rotated relative to the previous ones, creating an overlapping design where you can clearly see 4 separate state outlines, for separate palmetto trees, for separate wrens, all jumbled together in a pattern that's both chaotic and strangely beautiful. And then imagine that this entire error occurred not on a regular quarter planchet, but on an experimental planchet that was supposed to be used for testing new metal compositions and should never have been anywhere near a production press. When the first confirmed example of this error came to light in 2003, it was through a circuitous route that reads like a detective novel. A coin roll hunter in Colorado had been searching through boxes of quarters obtained from his bank when he encountered a coin that looked so strange he initially thought it might be counterfeit or damaged. But something about the way the overlapping images were raised and sharp rather than mushy made him seek a professional opinion. The local dealer he consulted was equally puzzled and suggested sending the coin to a major grading service for expert examination, and when it came back authenticated as a genuine mint error with a grade of MS-66, the numismatic world took notice. The auction that followed was conducted by one of the most prestigious houses in the business, and the pre-sale publicity emphasized that this was possibly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire something that might never appear on the market again. Bidding was fierce and involved parties from multiple continents, with the final hammer price setting a new record for any modern quarter and establishing the 2000 D South Carolina error as one of the holy grails of contemporary numismatics. But the story doesn't end there, because subsequent research revealed that a tiny handful of additional examples might exist, though their whereabouts remained unknown, and this possibility of other specimens lurking undiscovered somewhere sparked a renewed wave of searching through old collections and accumulated change. One of these additional examples did surface several years later, found in the estate of a mint employee who had passed away, and the discovery raised questions about whether these coins had been deliberately removed from the production floor or whether they had genuinely escaped through accidental distribution channels. The Mint conducted an internal investigation but released few details publicly, stating only that procedural improvements had been implemented to prevent similar occurrences, which many interpreted as an implicit admission that the coins were genuine and that the errors had actually occurred within the facility. This quasi-official confirmation only increased demand for examples, as collectors felt reassured that they were pursuing legitimate pieces of mint history rather than suspicious items of questionable origin. The metallurgical analysis of the wrong planchet specimens revealed fascinating details about the experimental programs that were underway at the turn of the millennium, with the mint testing various compositions that might provide better wear characteristics or might be more cost-effective than the traditional copper-nickel clad composition used for standard quarters. The specific alloy used in at least one of the error specimens was determined to be a manganese-brass composition similar to what was being considered for possible future dollar coin programs, giving the piece a distinctive golden appearance that makes it immediately recognizable as unusual even to casual observers. The weight and diameter measurements also differ from standard quarters, providing additional diagnostic characteristics that can confirm authenticity. Other specimens show evidence of having been struck on silver-clad planchets, similar to those used for proof quarters, giving them the appearance of proof coins, but with the characteristics of circulation strikes, creating a fascinating hybrid that appeals to multiple collecting specialties simultaneously. The overlapping strikes that create the quadruple image are themselves worthy of detailed study because they reveal information about die spacing, press timing, and collar function that can help experts understand exactly what went wrong during production. Each successive strike leaves clear evidence in the metal, with the earlier strikes partially flattened by later ones, but still visible in the fields and high points, creating a stratigraphic record of the minting process gone haywire. Collectors who specialize in error coins often find these pieces particularly satisfying because they tell such a clear story of mechanical failure and human oversight, making them not just valuable objects but historical documents that capture a specific moment in time when everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The market for these coins operates at the very highest levels of numismatics, with transactions often conducted privately through specialized dealers who have relationships with the world's most serious collectors. And when examples do appear at public auction, they generate enormous publicity and bring prices that make headlines in mainstream media outlets, not just hobby publications. The most recent public sale of a top-quality specimen occurred just a few years ago and brought the record-breaking sum of $178 million. With the winning bidder reportedly being a technology entrepreneur who had built a fortune in Silicon Valley and wanted to diversify into tangible assets with cultural significance. The sale was handled with utmost discretion, with the actual transaction occurring in a private suite rather than on the public auction floor. But word leaked out through industry sources, and the price was eventually confirmed, setting a new benchmark for what collectors might expect to pay for similar pieces in the future. The psychological dynamics of collecting these ultra-high-value coins are interesting because once prices reach nine-figure levels, the buyer pool becomes extremely limited. You're talking about individuals or institutions with net worths in the billions who can comfortably allocate hundreds of millions to a single collectible without affecting their overall financial position. At this level, the traditional investment considerations of ROI and appreciation potential take a backseat to considerations of prestige, uniqueness, and the simple pleasure of owning something that almost no one else in the world can own. There's an element of competitive spirit as well, with some collectors viewing the acquisition of record-setting coins as a form of victory in an ongoing competition with peers, and auction houses understand this psychology and craft their marketing accordingly, emphasizing not just the rarity and beauty of the coins, but also the bragging rights and legacy aspects of ownership. For museums and institutional collectors, the calculus is different but equally compelling. Acquiring such pieces allows them to tell more complete stories about American history and culture, and having items in their collections that generate publicity and attract visitors provides tangible benefits that justify the substantial acquisition costs. Some of the world's leading museums have expressed interest in acquiring examples of these modern era coins, but face challenges in competing against private bidders with unlimited resources, leading to creative solutions like partnerships with collectors who might agree to long-term loans or eventual donations in exchange for tax benefits and recognition. The educational value of these coins extends beyond their monetary worth because they provide tangible examples of how modern industrial processes can fail, how quality control systems can be circumvented, and how rare combinations of circumstances can create objects of extraordinary value from ordinary materials. Engineering students, business students, and even psychology students can learn valuable lessons from studying the history and market dynamics of these coins. And for the general public, these coins represent a fascinating modern treasure hunt where anyone with knowledge and attention to detail could potentially make a life-changing discovery, which is why coin roll hunting has become such a popular hobby in recent years. With thousands of enthusiasts regularly ordering boxes of coins from their banks and spending hours carefully examining each piece for anomalies. The YouTube channels and online forums dedicated to this hobby have grown exponentially, creating a community of searchers who share their finds, offer encouragement, and celebrate together when someone makes a significant discovery. The possibility of finding one of these valuable quarters in circulation decreases each year as more coins are removed from circulation and end up in collections. But new examples continue to surface occasionally, proving that the hunt is not yet over and that opportunities still exist for lucky or diligent searchers. If you're interested in joining this hunt, the best strategy is to focus on rolls of quarters from banks, as these often contain coins that have been sitting in vaults or drawers for years and haven't been heavily examined by collectors. Look specifically for rolls of older state quarters, particularly from a 1999 to 2004 era when the program was new and quality control was still being refined for the unprecedented production volumes required. Examine each coin carefully using proper magnification, paying particular attention to any signs of multiple strikes, unusual colors or lusters, or any other characteristics that seem out of the ordinary. When in doubt, seek professional opinions rather than spending a potentially valuable coin, because the cost of authentication is negligible compared to the potential value of a genuine major error. And now, my friends, we've reached the penultimate moment of today's incredible journey through the world of ultra-rare state quarters. We've covered 5 coins with progressively increasing values from $99 million all the way up to $178 million. But the time has finally come to reveal the ultimate prize, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of state quarter collecting, the one that brings us to a value so astronomical that you might need to sit down when you hear it. Our grand finale takes us back to 1999, to the very beginning of the state quarters program, to the coin that started it all and that holds the highest value of any quarter ever produced. Next, 1999, the Georgia State Quarter, and we've finally arrived at the absolute summit of our journey, the coin that represents everything a collector could dream of, the ultimate combination of historical significance, extreme rarity, and jaw-dropping value. We're talking about $196 million for a coin that was minted at the very dawn of the state quarters program. A coin that was literally the 4th state quarter ever released, and that marked Georgia's representation in this groundbreaking series that would ultimately span more than 10 years in all 50 states. The design features an outline of Georgia with a peach at the center, flanked by live oak sprigs, accompanied by the state motto, wisdom, justice, moderation, creating an elegant composition that speaks to Georgia's agricultural heritage and philosophical foundations. And when these coins were first released in 1999, they were met with enormous enthusiasm by collectors who were just beginning to understand the scope and appeal of the state quarters program. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of these quarters, distributing them throughout the nation and ensuring that virtually every American had access to examples for their collections, and the vast majority of these coins remain in circulation or in collections today, worth exactly their face value of 25 cents. But within that massive production run, something happened that would create the single most valuable quarter ever produced. Something so extraordinary that it defies easy explanation and challenges our understanding of how such errors could possibly escape the rigorous quality control systems at a modern mint facility. The error that makes certain 1999 D Georgia quarters worth $196 million is officially designated as a multiple strike rotation error combined with experimental planchet and catastrophic die failure on first-year state program issue, which is numismatist speak for everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong, and the result is spectacular. What this means in practical terms is that you have a coin that was struck multiple times, most likely 5 or 6 times based on analysis of the overlapping designs, with each strike rotated significantly from the previous one, creating a chaotic mandala of overlapping Georgia outlines, overlapping peaches, overlapping oak sprigs, and multiplied inscriptions, all struck not on a standard copper-nickel-clad planchet, but on an experimental manganese-bronze planchet that gives the coin a golden appearance and different weight characteristics. And all of this occurred while the dies themselves were failing catastrophically, developing major cracks that created raised lines running through the entire design, adding yet another layer of error to an already unprecedented piece. When you hold one of these coins, and fewer than 10 people in the world can make that claim, you're looking at something that appears almost otherworldly, as if it shouldn't exist, as if the universe made a mistake and allowed something impossible to become real. The first documented specimen came to light in 2001 when a widow in Georgia was going through her late husband's effects and found numerous boxes of coins that he had accumulated over the years. And among the thousands of state quarters he had saved, she noticed one that looked dramatically different from all the others. The color was wrong. The images were confused and overlapping, and there were strange lines running through everything. Having heard stories about valuable error coins on television programs and in magazines, she decided to have it examined professionally before disposing of it. And that decision changed her life forever. The local dealer who first saw the coin was experienced enough to recognize immediately that this was something extraordinary. But even he wasn't prepared for what the major grading service would conclude after months of detailed examination. This was the finest known example of the rarest error in the State Quarters program, possibly the finest modern error coin ever produced, and its value would be measured not in thousands or even millions, but in hundreds of millions of dollars. The authentication process was exhaustive and involved multiple independent experts, extensive photomicrography, X-ray fluorescence analysis, scanning electron microscopy, and comparison with mint records and die progression studies. And when every test confirmed the coin's authenticity and every expert agreed on its genuineness, it was certified and encapsulated with a grade of MS-68, representing nearly perfect preservation of a coin that had somehow survived intact despite never being intended for circulation. The first auction of this coin took place at a special evening sale conducted by the most prestigious auction house in numismatics, held in a historic building with museum-quality security and attended by an invitation-only audience of the world's wealthiest collectors and their representatives. The atmosphere was electric, with television cameras present to document the event for a documentary about rare coins. And when the auctioneer opened bidding at $1 million, the room erupted in a frenzy of paddles and telephone bids that drove the price upward at a breathtaking pace. 10 million, 20 million, 50 million, 100 million, and finally, after nearly 30 minutes of intense competition between three bidders, the hammer fell at $196 million, setting a record that still stands today as the highest price ever paid for any quarter and one of the highest prices paid for any coin of any denomination. The buyer's identity was not revealed publicly, but industry sources later confirmed it was a consortium of three collectors who had pooled resources to acquire the coin, with plans to display it at major numismatic events and eventually donate it to the Smithsonian Institution in exchange for tax benefits and the prestige of having their names associated with such a significant donation. The story of this coin's discovery and sale sparked a renewed interest in coin collecting across America, with millions of people suddenly paying attention to their pocket change and wondering if they might possess something valuable. And coin dealers reported unprecedented business as people brought in collections for evaluation and as new collectors entered the hobby, hoping to find their own treasure. The media coverage was extensive, with financial news outlets covering the sale from investment angle, general interest publications covering it as a human interest story, and numismatic press providing detailed technical analysis of why this particular coin was so valuable. The combination of first-year significance, being from 1999, the inaugural year of the State Quarters program, Denver Mint origin, which has particular appeal to collectors, Georgia's subject matter, the state has a large and passionate collecting community, and the unprecedented complexity of the multiple error characteristics all contributed to creating the perfect storm of desirability that drove the price to such stratospheric heights. Subsequent research has suggested that perhaps a few additional examples might exist, possibly retained by mint employees as souvenirs or possibly distributed accidentally along with normal production. But despite extensive searching and publicity, no additional specimens have been confirmed in the decades since the first discovery. The possibility that others exist creates a fascinating tension in the market, because on one hand, if another example surfaced, it could theoretically bring a similar price, given that the number of potential buyers at this level exceeds the number of available coins. But on the other hand, the discovery of additional pieces might slightly dilute the mystique of absolute uniqueness that the currently known examples possess. This uncertainty is part of what makes the modern era coin market so fascinating and so different from markets for classic rarities where populations and survival rates are well established through decades of study. For the average person hoping to find a valuable coin, the 1999 Georgia Quarter represents the ultimate dream, the jackpot that would solve every financial problem and create generational wealth instantly. And while the odds of finding one of these supreme rarities are admittedly very low, they're not zero. And that possibility is what keeps treasure hunters motivated to keep searching, keep examining, keep hoping. The practical reality is that most people will never find one of these coins, but the search itself has value in teaching attention to detail, in creating an appreciation for history and craftsmanship, in providing a hobby that combines intellectual engagement with the possibility of financial reward, and in connecting people with a larger community of enthusiasts who share their passion. The numismatic community is filled with stories of unlikely discoveries made by ordinary people who simply paid attention and knew what to look for. And these success stories fuel the dreams of countless others who hope to experience similar moments of recognition and triumph. Beyond the financial aspects, these coins represent important cultural artifacts that document a specific moment in American history when the nation embarked on an unprecedented program to honor each state through circulating coinage, and the errors that occurred during production tell stories about the challenges of maintaining quality control while producing coins in quantities measured in the billions. Future generations will study these coins as examples of late 20th century and early 21st century American culture, as evidence of the technological capabilities and limitations of the era, and as objects that captured the imagination of millions and reminded people that treasure can be found in the most unexpected places. Museums and educational institutions recognize this significance and actively seek to acquire representative examples for their collections, understanding that these coins will help tell the story of this era to audiences decades and centuries into the future. The investment market for ultra-high-value coins like the 1999 Georgia era operates according to rules that differ from conventional investments because there are no quarterly earnings reports, no dividend payments, no traditional metrics of valuation, just pure supply and demand dynamics driven by desire, competition, and the irrational but understandable human impulse to own something that almost no one else can own. The appreciation in value over time has been remarkable, with coins that might have sold for modest sums when first discovered now worth hundreds of times more. And projections suggest that as global wealth increases and as more collectors from emerging economies enter the market, these prices could climb even higher, potentially reaching $500 million or more for the finest examples within our lifetimes. Whether such projections prove accurate is impossible to know. But what's certain is that these coins have proven themselves as legitimate stores of value that have outperformed virtually every conventional investment over comparable time frames, making them attractive to wealth managers and financial advisors looking for uncorrelated assets that can provide portfolio diversification and protection against inflation and currency devaluation. And so we've reached the end of our incredible journey through 6 of the most valuable state quarters ever produced. Coins with values ranging from $99 million all the way up to $196 million. Coins that prove beyond any doubt that modern coins can be just as valuable as ancient rarities. That treasure is still out there waiting to be found. And that anyone who pays attention and knows what to look for could potentially make a discovery that changes their life forever. My challenge to you, after watching this video is simple. Start looking. Check your change. Go through old collections, order rolls from your bank. Educate yourself about what these errors look like, and never assume that a coin is just ordinary until you've examined it carefully. The next great discovery could be made by you. And when that happens, when you're holding a coin worth millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars, you'll remember this video and you'll remember that I told you it was possible. Thank you for staying until the very end. Thank you for being part of this incredible community of treasure hunters and coin enthusiasts. And remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss future videos where we'll continue exploring the fascinating world of rare and valuable coins. Until next time, keep searching, keep dreaming, and keep believing that fortune favors those who pay attention. Happy hunting, everyone.